Think of a surgeon or a CEO. You thought of a man, didn't you? Every single person in this room has some form of gender bias. Maybe not consciously. We have all been brought up with unavoidable prejudices at home, school, and in our society. We have all been taught from a very young age that pink is for girls, blue is for boys, that girls are weak and boys are strong. Bias is our brain's thinking system that occurs when people process and interpret information in the world around them. This is usually the result of the brain trying to simplify information it has received throughout the day. There are two main ways the brain filters through it all. The first is memory-related bias. The way you remember something might be the cause for a bias that in turn will affect decision-making and thinking. And the second is attention-related bias. Since attention isn't infinite, people have to be selective on what they pay attention to in the world around them. The issue with this is that assumptions are made, and stereotypes and prejudices slowly start to form. These gender biases are often expressed linguistically. An example of this can be shown in phrases like physicians and their wives, automatically assuming that the physician is a male, instead of saying physicians and their spouses. Most of us follow society's expectations of how a girl and boy should act and look, these all being derived from centuries of bias and prejudice. This affects us all, but girls and women are often affected more. According to Plan International, an independent development and humanitarian organization that focuses on children's rights and gender equality, we are all influenced by gender. Gender norms tell us what is appropriate for girls and for boys, for women and men to do in our society. Because of these stereotypes, girls and women are often less valued and have a lower social status. Further evidence that women and girls are minorities in our patriarchal world can be shown by something called the Henry Higgins effect, which is a tendency to assume problems women face in the workplace and elsewhere could be solved by training them to act more like men. Even the physical workplace is built around data collected by and for men. For example, when a standard office temperature was formulated, it was created for a 70-kilo, 40-year-old cis white man, meaning that it is, on average, 5 degrees too cold in the standard workplace for women, making it more uncomfortable to work. In her book Invisible Women, Caroline Criado Perez wrote, "The result of our deeply male-dominated culture is that the male experience and the male perspective have come to be seen as universal, while the female experiences, that of half of the global population, have come to be seen as niche. With a niche identity and subjective point of view, women have been framed to be forgettable, ignorable, and dispensable from history, from culture, and from data." And then there is the day-to-day experience. Sexist jokes and comments are part of my everyday life. I constantly hear them at school and in our society. They are unavoidable no matter where in the world you go, from Sweden, Bali, and everywhere else. I have always found this so unbearable to see and hear, and so I decided to help make a change. I believe that solving gender inequality would not only benefit us as individuals, but our entire world, with better pay, education, and opportunities for all. This is why I decided to create a game, challenging people's biases and making them more aware of the biases they may not have known to have. I know what my goal is now, but the process to get here was extremely long. I knew straight away that I wanted to focus on gender, but I had no idea what to do. At first, I was interested in abortion rights in Indonesia, sexual harassment, and women's roles in politics. But again, I had no idea what to do. As I continued researching, my teacher showed me the hate pyramid. The hate pyramid is a model that shows how simple, everyday acts of bias can easily escalate to prejudice, discrimination, violence, murder, and even in some cases, genocide. In other words, without bias, we wouldn't have discrimination. So if gender bias was completely eradicated from our societies, gender-based violence and prejudice would never happen in the first place. My interest in this subject is rooted from politics, I think. I was always extremely interested in knowing what was going on around the world. When I noticed the gender-related inequalities, like policies made for men by men, or policies made for women, again, by men. Inequalities are everywhere, even in the tech industry, in so-called gender-neutral products. For example, a woman's average hand size is between 7 and 8 inches, making the standard 48-inch keyboard a challenge. The standard keyboard piano size makes it harder for women to reach the same level of fame reached by their male colleagues, also resulting in more work-related injuries. Apple iPhones are too big for a woman's average hand, even though research shows that women are more likely to own an iPhone than men. Apple developers justified that women like bigger phones because they put them in their handbags. But handbags are used so heavily only because women's clothes lack adequate pockets. You see, this current approach to product design is making the world easier for men and harder for women. This is what drove me to focus and dive deeper into gender bias, the constant prioritization of the male experience. We now live in a generation that is more open to change and speaks up about issues and unfairness, which is something that I think will help to rapidly reduce gender inequality. And one of my solutions that I created over the course of 6 months during Quest are my cards, an educational tool made for teenagers aged 13 to 16 to help them recognize their biases and challenge them to think in new ways. The game I created directly takes action towards SDG 5.1 and 5.2, which are to end discrimination against women and girls and to end all violence against and exploitation of women and girls. Gender is an extremely hard topic to cover. At least it was for me, since there was so much I wanted to do. Trying to narrow down my ideas in order to be able to turn it into a game was a challenge, but throughout the entire process of working on Quest, it helped me deeply reflect on what was truly important to me. I started by interviewing people about what they believed was important for me to talk about in my game. I also contacted a child psychologist for more information regarding how biases work in children's brains and some strategies I could use to make teenagers more aware of the things they say and do. With the information I collected, I started creating my cards and contacted my school in Sweden for possibilities of doing my first trial of the game there. Here are some images of trials 1 and 2 in ISSR Sweden and 3 in Green School. I had asked everyone to fill out a pre-game and post-game survey in order to measure and notice change in biases before and after the game. As shown in this pie chart, 44% of students never or almost never talk about gender inequality at home, which is something that I think I would like to tackle with the help of my game. Raising awareness about gender inequality and creating opportunities for people to open up conversations about it. This graph shows that women and girls in both Sweden and Bali encounter gender inequality at school more often than anyone else. Why is our world built this way, where women have to fight for respect and recognition, and men are prioritized in everything? This was understandable maybe thousands of years ago, where the men's strength was needed for safety and survival. But we're in the 21st century now. Most of us have food at our disposal and the safety of our homes. Did you know that across 156 countries covered by the index, women represent only 26.1% of some 35,000 parliament seats? And in 81 countries, there has never been a woman head of state. And the World Economic Forum estimated that it will take 145.5 years to achieve gender equality in politics. Bias is the root for all this lack of freedom and opportunities, and it's so unfair. Gender equality means that men and women have equal power and opportunities for financial independence, education, and personal development. Clearly, we still have an extremely long way to go. But my project doesn't end here. After this, I would like to continue editing and donating my cards to more international schools, not only in Bali, but in Indonesia, and trying to spread it internationally. I would like to thank all my Quest teachers for helping me throughout Quest, especially Ibu Angie, who throughout both terms helped me bring my card games and thoughts to life. I would like to thank my parents and friends for encouraging me to continue when I had lost a little motivation. And a last thank you to Coralie, Ibu Harriet, Ibu Jen, Belinda, Anna, and Rashtra for also helping me during my journey. There is one last thing I would like for you all to listen to and consider. A man does something, it's strategic. A woman does the same thing, it's calculated. A man is allowed to react, a woman can only overreact. It goes on and on and on. A man does something, confident and bold. A woman does it the same way, and she's smug. A man stands up for himself, a woman throws a temper tantrum. Taylor Swift. According to UNICEF, there are around 1.3 billion teenagers worldwide, taking up 16% of our world's population. I've talked to approximately 70 so far, So that means that there are still 1,299,999,930 teenagers that still need to be addressed. Thank you.